Okay, so this is actually going to be, looks like it's probably going to be an abbreviated show. Um, so we have two more stories, and they're relatively big stories. Okay. Um, so over the past 2 or 3 days, okay, I've been talking about box office predictions. I did the Spider Verse the other day. We just had Jeremy on talking about this movie. So, guys, if you want to go back and get a little insight about this movie, go watch that. Um, anyways, the film I'm talking about, and I was talking about June earlier, okay, is going to be The Flash. This movie is, I think, easily, without a doubt, okay, on if you say what are your most anticipated movies of the year, this without a doubt, hands down, is at least number one or number two on everybody's list. It's The Flash, it was Guardians of the Galaxy, and then maybe, Across the Spider Verse. But this movie has been okay. So a few things. Number one, this has been made. Okay, this has been what we call in the can. This has been locked up for over a year. Okay, I mean with reshoots and this has been done for quite a long time. Um, that being said, it's opening as it states there on the 16th of June, which is, excuse me, it's going to be interesting to see how much it makes um, opening weekend. So we have our first box office predictions. And I gotta say, I thought they would be more. So, according to our good friend Jeremy at the Wrap, who was just talking about this yesterday, literally 2 days ago, literally, we were talking about box office predictions for the Flash, and he says, okay, through his sources, it's going to be about 75 million plus. Okay, the first round of box office projections are in for Warner Brothers' The Flash, and after a year of struggles for DC movies, Andy Machetti's time warping film may bring a box office rebound through initial projections that are not as big as some theater owners and box office observers would have liked. 3 weeks out from release, projections have The Flash earning an opening at least, key word there, at least $75 million, lower than the $134 million of Matt Reeves' Batman in March of 2022, but better than the $67 million opening of Black Adam, and way better than the abysmal $30 million that Shazam Fury of the Gods made. Rival distributors tell The Wrap that they expect projections to increase as the film's June 16th date gets closer. Both publicly and privately, Warner Brothers executives have shown immense confidence in The Flash. Studio insiders have told The Wrap that the film received rave scores from audience test screenings, and the film's public screenings at CinemaCon last month was met with positive reaction from movie theater owners. The question as the marketing for the film ramps up is whether the film can build enough audience word of mouth along with Gen X nostalgia from Michael Keaton as Batman to get fans excited for the blockbuster starring Ezra Miller as the Flash as he uses his power to prevent the death of his mother but creates a catastrophe that threatens the multiverse. The film will need good reviews from both audiences and critics, as a weak reception for Black Adam and Shazam 2, combined with James Gunn's upcoming reboot of DC Studios, has taken a blow to mainstream audience interest in this franchise. Further complicating things is Miller's public outbursts and run ins with the law, which happened last year after the production of The Flash, which includes reshoots, was completed. Usually, mainstream audiences are familiar with an actor's personal scandals, to the point that it has very little box office impact. But it's difficult to predict whether Miller's publicized arrest of history of erratic and violent behavior will influence how the public talks about the film. Miller's performance takes up a great degree of the Flash that one would even expect for the lead star of a superhero film, as he spends much of the runtime playing both Barry Allen's and an alternate timeline version of Barry interacting with one another. Flash will also come out during a crowd pleasing period for theaters, June 16th release date with the family-focused movie Pixar's film Elemental, which we touched upon the other day, and hitting theater 1 week after Transformers: Rise of the Beast. The Flash will have a second weekend free of any series competition. Wes Anderson's Asteroid City is supposed to be the top release of the 23rd, before Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny hits theaters on the 30th. Okay, let's talk about this. So, before we go any further, Kevin says this. Summer domestic box office. Indiana Jones, Dial of Destiny, Little Mermaid, Guardians 3, Mission Impossible, Spider-Man, The Flash, Elemental, Barbie, Haunted Mansion. So I would say, I think that, so we already know what's going to happen with Guardians. Okay, Guardians is going to be, that's doing really well. I mean, that made about $30 million this last weekend, and that's going to have some staying power. I think that Indiana Jones has, so a couple of things, and Jeremy touched on one of the things in the piece, okay, is that you have a film, this is the second film of 3, okay, in which you have 2 weeks to really do its thing, okay? Number 1 was Guardians of the Galaxy 3, okay? That had the 5th and the 12th. This is going to have the 16th and the 23rd, as he touched upon, and then Mission Impossible is going to be the other one with the July, or I'm sorry, Indiana Jones is going to be the third one, because it's going to have the 30th and then the next weekend, which July 4th, right around there. I think that it's going to be interesting. I think Spider-Man, okay, Across the Spider-Verse, to your point, Kevin, I think that's going to do really, really well. Okay. Barbie, I don't know. I really like that last trailer. I'm kind of in on it. I don't know. Haunted Mansion, I haven't heard anything about. Like, zero. So I'm really curious to see how that whole thing is going to work with that. That all being said, I think it's interesting because, okay, you have a movie like this, and it's one of those things I've said months ago, okay, that I thought Shazam would be a litmus test for the Flash, okay, and that being because it is a DC product, it is everything else. That all being said, it's going to be he touched on a lot of good things in that piece. Number 1, it's going to have 2 weeks. Number 2, it's really going to have a huge Thursday night opening. Okay. I really believe that. Metal says Spider-Man might do a billion or at least 800 million. Yeah. I mean, I believe that. I mean, I don't know about, that's a touch high, Metal. I think that I would probably say like 6 or 7, only because there's so much out there. I mean, don't forget, you're going to have Transformers. You're going to have this. You're going to have Indiana Jones. You're going to have Michelle. I think, and I mean, we talked about this the other day on the interview, not much, but I think some of these movies are going to get cannibalized, okay, because there's so much there. One misstep by any one of these movies, and that other movie the prior week is just going to gobble up that box office. So, but the good news is for Spider-Verse, it is at the beginning of the month. But there's something interesting about the piece that he wrote, and it was this. He said 75 million, but it's expected to go up. So my feeling is this. If this doesn't make $100 million opening weekend, okay, I think it's a failure. I gotta be honest. With you. Because we have heard so much, and I'm not talking, forget about Tom Cruise saying it's a great film and Stephen King. They can say whatever they want, okay? I'm talking about your average run-of-the-mill moviegoer like you guys there, myself, and everybody else. That being said, if this doesn't make $100 million opening weekend, okay, I think it's a failure. I really do. And the reason I say that is because it's not going to have any room to breathe. Now, I'm not saying it's got to make $200 million opening weekend, okay, but it has to make more than 75. If it makes 85 to 90, that's much better than it was, okay? And if it could even hit 100, which, look, we've seen movies out there that they said, oh, it's only going to make this, and it blew up. So, as I said at the start of the piece, okay, this is one of those movies that it's always one of the top 1 or 2 or 3 films. I mean, it was always The Flash, Cross the Spider-Verse, Guardians of the Galaxy. Always. In that, I mean, mix them up any way you want. But I think 75, it's got to do something more than 75. It has to. Because moving forward, if this doesn't make if it doesn't make a good amount here in the States to start, it's got to make all that stuff overseas, or this is considered a failure. And I mean, James Gunn he hasn't come out and said it, but we can kind of read between the lines and say Gal is not going to come back, or Momoa's not going to come back and play Aquaman or whatever. Now, he hasn't said that. But this is supposed to be the last film to reset everything. Everything. So I really, and there is a whole other dilemma here, okay? If Sacha Cohen, and I believe that's her name, I may have gotten it wrong, forgive me. If she is good as Supergirl, and by the way, this premiered at CinemaCon, so all of the movie theater owners, if this is good, do you keep her on? I mean, so there's a number of different questions that are going to be out there for this. I'm excited. Now, I'm not a comic book person per se. I am excited to see this, though. Number one, I want to see how good it is. I mean, some of the people comparing this to The Dark Knight, and I went, whoa, slow your roll, because, I mean, we're going to be doing the Dark Knight for Perfect Movies in June, but Dark Knight is a perfect movie. Sorry. I can't see, there are very few films that get to that status of perfect. Maybe I would put Logan in there, very close to it. I would put Infinity War in there, close to it. Yeah. So it's one of those things where we'll have to wait and see. If this, but 75, I think, is a bit low. If this doesn't make $100 million opening weekend, I hate to say it, my eyes, and look, the reason why I say that is this. So Metal says Endgame, and I hear that. I hear that argument all the time, Metal. And the thing is, at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, Endgame is just a time travel movie. That's all it is. I mean, Infinity War, the thing about Infinity War was this, okay, that you had this villain in Thanos that you had not seen for 20 some odd films, almost 10 years. You'd only seen him twice the whole other time. And that being said, you finally got to see Thanos in his entirety. And he was a badass. And that's what people wanted. But Endgame was it was a time. I mean, you definitely, just like any other movie, you can definitely know when the 3 acts are going to be. Act 1 was them trying to figure out the time heist. Act 2 was a time heist. And then Act 3 was a major battle. So, but what I'm saying about The Flash compared to this is emotion. If it is an emotional charge, I could see it not being perfect like The Dark Knight, but really doing well. Anyways, what do you guys think about The Flash? Are you excited to see The Flash? Do you have any desire to see The Flash? How many times are you going to go see it? Leave me your thoughts down in the comments, and I will get back to everybody.